there, and then if you can lift the top bit up.
Lift it down.
Yeah, and then slam it down. Brilliant.
In the war, my father would send on odd occasions illustrated postcards which would tell my mother more or less where he was stationed at the time. On these postcards he would just put, "Dear Gladys, love Bill," because during the war there was a lot of census on letters and things of that sort, because obviously they didn't want the Germans to know where the troops were moving about throughout the country. And the postcard was obviously a very simple way of letting somebody know where you were. And like today, we didn't have the mobile phones, emails and that type of thing, so it was quite an easy thing to fill in a little postcard and send it off. And of course, when my father sent the postcard, it was always an illustrated postcard of the place where he was. So when he went to Ireland, he sent a postcard showing Ireland. When he went to Germany, he sent one which was showing Berlin. And then when he went then to Norway, he sent one from there. So this sort of eased the pressure on my mother, because if there was a gap in not receiving letters, she was always wondering, well, what has happened? Has something happened to him? So this was a very, very simple way of just letting my mother know that everything was all right with him. Because if you sent a letter, it was obvious you had to put in the letter the return address. Well, they didn't want you to know where they were actually stationed, so it was a simple, very simple thing of just filling in a few words on the back of a postcard, staying in within the law and letting my mother know exactly where he was. With the evacuees, I suppose it took a little bit of getting used to, because I was an only child and I'd been on my own just with my mother for years, and then all of a sudden to have two other people in the house with you of same age, more or less. But you had to feel sympathetic to the evacuees, because they were coming into a strange place, and some of these children, very young, were actually coming into a village where they'd never seen a mountain, they'd never seen a green field, they'd never seen a cow or a sheep, and didn't know that chickens produced eggs. So this was an education for them when they come into the village. So you tried your hardest to be friendly with them. But what I found myself personally was, because we had two brothers, they stuck together. And where at times I felt a little bit I was an outsider. But generally speaking, we all got on well together. And I think that even in school, that we all mingled in and got on, as I said, very well. When the sirens went, obviously we had to take shelter, and unlike the people up in London and places like that, there was no Anderson air raid shelters about or anything. There was one brick-built shelter quite a way from our house, which we never went into. So what we done, we went under the stairs, and before my father had gone to the army, he'd reinforced underneath the stairs with timber and placed a wooden box in there, which was converted into a small bed, and inside the box then was a few odds and ends of food or whatever and water, so that if we did happen to get bombed and trapped, at least we might survive for a little while. With regards to the songs that we sang, obviously it was all songs about Hitler and his army, you know. We're gonna hang out the washing on the Siegfried line, roll out the barrel, you know. Hitler is quite balmy, so is his army. It was just things like that that us youngsters would sing, to have a go at the enemy in a sense, like. So that's about all it was, because there was no real music. We're asking to support a card from Bill. I think it's very important that youngsters today can see these films, because although we see lots and lots of war films and bombings and this, that and the other, very little is ever said about the women that stayed at home waiting to hear from their husbands when they were in various different countries. One of the most things that a woman would look for is a letter or a card to let her know that her husband was all right. But the thing that they didn't like was to see the postman walking down the road with a telegram in his hand, because then they knew that there was either a death or a missing, and that wasn't a very nice thing. So the cards were very, very important, and I think that it's nice that people should know that this was one way that a soldier would communicate and let his wife and his family know exactly where he was and that he was all right. So please support A Card for Bill.